it is very clear that you do care about the opinions of your constituents, even if you fundamentally disagree with them. That is an essential quality of a leader, and we're all quite fortunate that this is a quality we possess. I would also like to speak more broadly now to the members of the town council and everybody who is here tonight. The fact that we are all here is excellent news because it means we all care about the quality of life here in East Windsor. So I thank you all for caring. Next, I want to apologize to you. I did apologize to the mayor via email about 2 weeks ago, but I also want to extend this apology to all of you because I confess that my tone at times has been condescending, belligerent, and unpoised. To those of you on the town council, I should have shown you more respect, for you are our democratically elected officials. That means the majority of East Windsor values your service, and so if I want to have a constructive conversation with you, I'm going to have to respect that. As for the rest of you here tonight, we are neighbors, and I should make it clear when I speak that the points I raise, I fully believe are in your interest, obviously as well as in mine. I fully realize that the purpose of these meetings is to discuss the political future and the well-being of our township, not for anyone to lash out on anyone, and again, I am profoundly sorry if I gave you any impression to the contrary. Since the purpose of these meetings is to discuss the political well-being of East Windsor and its future, I think it is crucial that we discuss fundamental political principles and also what East Windsor's long-term goals should be. Actions without clearly defined principles and long-term goals are aimless and unkempt. If the township does have fundamental principles and long-term goals, they're not explicitly mentioned in our town council meetings. There are, however, implicit principles that our township clearly follows. And if any of you disagree with my assessment of what these implicit principles are, please interrupt me and correct me so that I have the record straight and can proceed. The implicit fundamental principle, so far as I understand, is that the function of government is to manage the township's economy at the expense of the taxpayer by religiously increasing taxes and spending. I would characterize it as part socialist and part fascist. I would say it is part socialist because of how much is owned by the government, i.e. the public. For example, public parks and roads, and improvements to these parks and roads. Public property of that sort is explicitly a socialist and communist concept, not a capitalist one. It says in the Communist Manifesto, actually, that the ultimate aim of communism is the abolition of private property and morality. I think we are certainly witnessing a nationwide crusade against the systematic, a crusade towards the systematic, step-by-step abolition of private property. I submit to you that our municipal government is also part fascist, because we are offered not full property rights, but rather the illusion of property rights. To make that clearer, I mean a township's economy where private businesses are controlled by and either given unfair advantage or disadvantage from the government and by the government. For a perfect example of this, I will remind you of what took place at the beginning of the last town council meeting. Madam Mayor, you gave certain businesses unfair advantage, special advertisement, and not on your own time, but during the time that you are required to spend on policy issues, not advertisement, not the private sector. I would further add that any tax dollars that go towards what is referred to, or what is often referred to by government bodies as economic development, is really just taxpayer dollars stolen to fundraise for fascism, i.e. the government's attempt to entice certain businesses to come to their town or state or country. For example, in Robbinsville, they spend money on government-run meet and greet dinners for businesses. That is how a governmental manipulated economy works, as opposed to having these people meet and greet on their own time, on their own dime. I disagree with the socialist and fascist political ideologies. The quality of life in every socialist and fascist country, or socialist and fascist leaning country, is poorer than the quality of life in a capitalist or more capitalist leaning countries. After all, socialist Europe is a mess. It was just in the Financial Times that they are enduring the longest recession since the birth of the European Union. There is a serious moral point I would like you all to consider, and that is the right to individual liberty, which means the right to a small government limited only to the protection of our individual liberty, which means nobody has the right to take your money from you and spend it as they choose, not even the name of public parks or public roads. Nobody has the right to tell you how your building or house should be built, as another example. Nobody has the right to force you to pay for somebody else's debt, as yet a third example. And so here is the guiding political principle I advocate. A government should be transparent, protect individual liberty, and have no debt. The transition into such a government is therefore, I believe, what our long-term goal should be. It is on the basis of this principle that I shall now proceed by addressing various items on tonight's agenda. Our meetings begin with presentations and proclamations. This is a very good idea, but what is it that should be presented and proclaimed specifically at the beginning of a town council meeting? I believe that the mayor and town council should present the council's and the township's political improvements and proclaim what it hopes to achieve during the present meeting and at upcoming meetings. This would give us all a profound sense of direction and pride. Now, there is an item on tonight's agenda which I need to better understand. So if you would be so kind as to answer my questions, it would be quite helpful. These questions are in reference to our 2012-78, the Drunk Driving Enforcement Fund. Before I ask, I do want to be quite explicitly clear that I'm very glad that we take the problem of drunk driving seriously. A girl who used to babysit me died because of a drunk driver, so this is actually a very personal issue for me. So my first question is, what is the difference between the money we pay our police officers who have the job of cracking down on drunk driving and the special Drunk Driving Enforcement Fund?
What I would ask you to do is to finish all of your comments and questions, and then determine when and how to answer them. And as you saw in the past, when they have any specificity to an agenda item, they will be addressed.
Thank you so much. And just to phrase this better, what I want to make clear is the question is the money we pay our police in part to pay them and enable them to enforce drunk driving? If that's the case, then why do we have a separate fund to do this? This resolution regards the 2012 fund, not the 2013 fund. So I just want to know why we're only appropriating these funds now, and if so, how come bills are prevented from being paid faster? Now, regarding our 2013-74, I want to know what the specific problem is with Yorkshire Road, how you determined that T&M Associates was the most qualified candidate to fix this road. I also want to say more broadly that I actually suggest that we start selling our roads to people who might like to manage them, so that one, they can lift this burden off the council's chest, two, make our government some money so we can pay back debt and lower property taxes, three, create jobs and wealth, and most importantly, four, return property which belongs to the private sector, which the government has no right to control and monopolize, return it to the private sector where it belongs. As you might know, this is actually not a foreign concept, and some people, it's not as foreign a concept as some people might suspect. There is a privately owned highway in Virginia. It is called the Dulles Greenway. It has been operating and growing since 1995. It has a 65-mile-per-hour speed limit, so it's not anarchic highway. And it charges a mere $2 to $3 per car. Now, to quote Dr. Klein, the assistant professor of economics at the University of California, in Irvine, quote, "The historical experience with toll roads offers some important lessons. First, private operation is more flexible, creative, and more motivated to serve than government control. In the 19th century, private road companies constantly outperformed their public sector alternatives. Second, private roads will not be constructed without the prospect of private gain. If governments overregulate on the promises, private road development will not occur. Finally, infrastructure is an economic good best left to private action," close quote. You can look this article up on freeman.com for more if you're interested. Now, in reference to Ordinance number 2013-04, we are already in $20 million of debt. And while I thank God we are not like Robbinsville, where they are in $40 million of debt, we are still in debt, and no government ever should be. It is a sign of weakness, codependence, as opposed to independence, and it's in a country, we're talking about in a country with over $17 trillion of federal debt, in a state with $71 billion of debt. Unless we want to risk looking like Greece, Cyprus, Spain, or Italy, we need to get rid of that debt. So please, please do not issue any new bonds. On that note, I want to know how high are the proposed interest rates compared to previous interest rates of bonds. Furthermore, when exactly would we expect these bonds to be paid back, and by whom? Because we don't have the right to burden younger people with bonds their parents and grandparents issued. That's not fair. Would it be fair for me to borrow money from a group of people in order to fund my campaign and then leave you with a check 5 or 10 years later? I certainly don't think so. I think that economic activity should be free, not coercive. But issuing these bonds is not only restrictive on future wealth, it would be imposing force upon others, a trademark of tyrants and criminals. Let's please not be like them. Again, please do not issue any new bonds. On that note, how can we objectively speak of things like affordable housing in East Windsor when we're issuing bonds that will make this town more expensive for us all, especially for the younger people? We're going to repel people. And I would like to remind you that more people have left the state of New Jersey this past year than any other state in the country. Not only that, we also have the highest property tax rates in the country, which I know we all know. Now, I know that the legislature and the governor have not made it easy for you. And that's why my running mates and I want to talk with you as much as possible about state mandates that we can eliminate to give property tax relief. But if we really want true property tax relief, let's sell public land and roads and let's cut spending. And in reference to ordinance number 2013-05, why do we need to rezone into a new corridor revitalization commercial zoning district, especially when we are, again, in debt, our property taxes are high, and we have many assets we can sell? I also want to know if there are any zoning regulations that as a municipality you are permitted to repeal. I would like to know which ones and when we can get started. So again, thank you so much for your time, for your service, and your interest in a better East Windsor. I think we can all take pride in the fact that we have something in common politically. Thank you.